Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Dr. Rhonda Y. Williams. I'm the founder and director of the Social Justice Institute here at Case Western Reserve University. And I'm glad to see all of you here today for the last of 5 read-in/teach-ins that we've done as part of a conversation called From Conversation to Action, Social Justice Read-ins and Teach-ins. And this is the last of 5 read-ins and teach-ins that were initiated by the Social Justice Institute with its co-sponsors, OMA, Office of Multicultural Affairs, OIDEO, the Office of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity, and also Afro-Am Society. And it came out of, for those of you who don't know, it came out of an event that we had at the end of last semester called From Ferguson to Cleveland. And at that event, which was spurred by the DOJ findings report that actually emerged in Cleveland. Actually, it was spurred by the killing of Mike Brown in Ferguson. And then the DOJ findings report in Cleveland that came out of the 137 shots in the Cleveland atrocity, one and the same thing that happened 2 years ago in 2012. And then shortly after that, we had Tamir Rice and Tanisha Anderson. And so all of that together spurred the demand and the need for a conversation, a campus-wide conversation on campus to talk about these heady issues, traumatic and tragic issues around police brutality, police violence, the question of race, and disparate policing in Black and brown communities and in the city of Cleveland. And from that, what we asked people to do were to let us know what they wanted, what they needed more of, what kind of information, what kind of activities. And out of that grew the 5 programs that we are finishing up with this one today. The first one, just as by way of recapping, the first one was a Department of Justice report read-in, where we actually looked at the U.S. Department of Justice findings report and went through it part by part, suggestion by suggestion, finding by finding, to give people a kind of real understanding of what was actually in the report that the DOJ issued. Then we had a conversation around Cleveland race and social movements. Following that, we had a conversation around police brutality in the Black community. And then after that, we had a conversation focused on millennials and what it means to be a radical student. Here we're in our 5th conversation with Naomi Sig and Amariah Israel. And that conversation is going to be on social change strategies, coalition building, and solidarity. And in addition to them, they're going to start us off with a kind of 20-minute presentation. We're going to have student activists, youth student activists, on campus and off campus, who will be a part of the conversation. Those students include Destiny and Duck. They're in the front here. You'll see them when they come up. And Lizard and Courtney, who are on their way. They actually went to our Social Justice Institute office instead of this building, so they're on their way as we speak. And so we're just really excited to have you here. We're not as excited by the events that brought us here, but we are excited that people are here ready to engage in conversation, to think about action, to think about how they can work together, to think about that in a positive way, and also to think about the real challenges that exist when it comes to coalition building and solidarity movements, and what we have to do in terms of the internal self-critical analysis of ourselves and our movements, as well as the proactive building and community connections that are necessary in terms of coalition building and solidarity. And that's what these 2 fabulous women are going to talk to you about from their expertise and the kinds of work and things that they're doing now on campus. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to them. One more thing. Dr. Rhonda always has one more thing. One more thing is we will be moving into Power Up, our Student, Youth, and Leadership Conference. So though this is the end of our 5-part series, on April 11th, we will have Power Up, Student, Youth, Leadership. There are flyers here up on the table. It'll be from 9 to 4 on that Saturday, and we hope all of you can join us and tell more people to kind of come out for that as well. So with that, I would like you to give a round of applause and welcome to Naomi and Amariah, and we'll start the program.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amariah Israel, and I am the Department Coordinator in the Office of Multicultural Affairs and the LGBT Center at Case Western Reserve University, and I use the pronouns she and her.
Hello, everyone. My name is Naomi Sig. I'm the Director of the Office of Multicultural Affairs. I also use the pronouns she, her, and hers. And we're really glad you're here today. Before we get started, I think it's so fitting, as we're talking about coalition building, finding people, getting to know others, seeing what everybody's doing, that we do a quick, brief introduction of everyone in the audience. You know, you all have some power, you all have some knowledge, some expertise, some resources. We want to hear that. So if you want to quickly just say who you are, your name, if you're involved in any organizations on campus real quick, then that would be helpful, that we can kind of keep that in the back of our minds as we go on through our presentation. Sound good? All right, great. Let's start here. Thank you.
My name is Betty Umenu.
We're going to turn the mic back.
Hello. Oh, my name is Betty Umenu. I'm not involved in any organizations. I'm a psych student. I'm a grad psych student. That's all.
Great.
Hi, my name's Matt Klein. I'm a graduate student here at Case Western Reserve University. I work with a couple other people in this room with the group Cleveland Advocates for Transgender Equality, or CATE as we call ourselves, and we've been working on an ordinance in Cleveland for the past like 6 months or so.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Amanda King, and I am a member of the Black Law Student Association.
I'm Sherry Tolliver, and I'm a resident of the community, and I'm involved with Organized Cleveland.
Hi, I'm Brenna. I'm a sophomore undergraduate at Case, and I'm involved in CECL.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm also an undergrad sophomore here at Case, and I'm also with the Civic Engagement Scholar Program.
Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm very happy to be here.
My name is Secondra Beasley. I am a member of NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and I belong to the Terrace Towers NAMI support group.
Hi, I'm Chris Casasola. I'm just a dude. I do stuff. I don't really have a title.
I'm Christine Lewis. I'm also with Cleveland Advocates for Transgender Equality that Matt mentioned earlier.
My name is Abdul Kareem Nafi. I am a Cleveland resident, father of a 2-year-old, and homeowner, and I'm involved with various organizations with putting items in the consent decree, drafting new charter, and I just want a better city, that's all.
My name's Randy Blackford. I get to work with Naomi and Amariah, and I care about them and passionately about this issue.
I'm Misty Lumine. I'm a research associate and project coordinator with the Social Justice Institute, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Hi, I'm Candace. I'm a part of the Afro-M Society, and I'm a junior.
Hi, my name is India Johnson. I'm a junior at Case, undergrad. I'm a sustained dialogue moderator and a member of the African American Society and orientation leader.
Hi, I'm Siba. I'm a 4th-year cognitive science student, and I use the pronouns she, her, hers.
I'm Anne. I'm a 3rd-year economics student at Case, and I'm involved in CECL and the campus radio station.
Hi, I'm Loretta Lafitte Griffin. I'm an alumni, an employee, and an intern at the Social Justice Institute.
Hi, my name is Destiny Hinton, and I'm president of the African American Society here at Case.
Hi, I'm Eva. I'm a 1st-year student at Case, and I am freshman rep for African American Society.
Hi, everyone. My name is Duck, like the bird, and I'm a part of a lot of different organizations, but I'll be mainly talking about gender-inclusive housing and those issues from here on out. And for those of you who just walked in, we're just doing real quick introductions, just your name, and if you're part of any type of organizations, it's nice to know as we think about building coalitions, we might find one right in this room.
Okay. Come on, Liz.
Hi, I'm Lizard. I don't really represent an organization, but if I had to, it'd probably be maybe Organize CLE, I guess. I don't know if we want to really do that, but why I'm here? Well, to speak on a panel. Also, because I want to be able to bridge some gaps and create solidarity between a lot of different groups today.
Would you like to say?
You just say your name and if you're part of any group, real quick. If you don't want to, it's cool.
You want to say your name as part of the person in the room, all of us in the room together?
Sure.
Please.
Hi, my name is Gabby, and I'm not affiliated with any group, but I do some work. And I'm here actually because someone I know is speaking who should be introduced now, I think.
Hello, I'm Mo. I'm with Cleveland Activist Network. I'm here to learn about coalition building, and some people I know are on the panel.
I can't hear. Yeah, it's hard to hear.
Hi, I'm Courtney. Oh, that wasn't good. I'm Courtney Drain. I'm part of CATE, which is Cleveland Advocates for Transgender Equality. And that's the only organization that I'm affiliated with, and I'm speaking on the panel today.
My name is Kevin, working with Food Not Bombs and Coit Road Market, which is in East Cleveland.
All right, I think we got two more
yep.
final, Rachel and Bishop. Come on, Rachel and Bishop.
All right, and then we can, if you don't mind, after they're done, if you just press it.
Yeah. Just introduce yourself and the organization.
My name is Bishop. I collaborate with a number of organizations.
My name's Rachel Smith, and I organize with a bunch of independent activists, and we organize under the banner of Organize CLE.
Great. All right, thank you so much. Hopefully you've heard a couple of different organizations, different people who you might be able to connect with after this. And so we're going to go ahead and get started and just go through our presentation, share a little bit about what is a coalition, how you get started, what are some important things to think about as you start or build a coalition, and how can you be effective while you're doing it. So the simplest way to talk about what a coalition is just to give you a brief definition. What's a coalition? It's a diverse group of people, individuals, organizations, working together for a common goal, common purpose, common vision, mission, and that's the most basic way to say it. So like I said, it doesn't just have to be about individuals, it can be people representing different organizations, corporations, nonprofits, all those different types of groups and communities coming together to kind of figure out how do they address an issue together, use different resources, different perspectives, and tackle something together. So it requires a lot of stuff. Sorry, my PowerPoint must have slid over the picture. But it requires a lot of things. It requires coalition building, it requires people. It requires resources. We can't, I mean, we can have the people, but if we don't have the resources, the supplies, let's be honest, some money, it's going to be really difficult to get things done. It also requires some bravery, some perseverance, some passion, commitment, dedication to do this work. It's not easy. And it's something that you kind of have to really stick to and have to be really dedicated and committed to whatever your cause is. And many of you in this room have a lot of different issues, causes, things that you believe and are passionate about that you're building coalitions right now and right here in Cleveland, which is wonderful. I have a picture of the We Belong Here movement. You all will probably hear about that from some of our panelists later. And that, in a sense, is a coalition of different students, students who worked here at Case Western Reserve University with administrators, with offices, to think about a common goal, and that common goal was to improve race relations. It was to improve the experience of African American students and other students who are marginalized on campus, and that's definitely a brave group up there. You might see some faces that are recognizable. So, all right. So you might say, okay, we're here, we're talking about coalition building. Why, I could do it myself. Why can't I just get my small group of friends, the people I know, that I trust, that I know are on the same page with me? Why can't we just do this together? Why can't we just get it done? Just do it on our own and be happy. Well, sometimes, unfortunately, our own organizations are not always enough. We can't do it always on our own. Sometimes you have an organization that's made up of a very small group of people who don't necessarily have maybe the influence or the power or even the resources to pop above that radar. We know that it's important. When you're in a coalition, sometimes it's because you're getting attention. You have people, you have the amount of people, you have the resources, you're getting the attention, it's widespread, you're in the media. Those are the types of things that coalitions can do as a larger community and a more powerful voice in the community. And so there's some benefits to it. The first benefit is this idea of expertise and perspectives. How many of you have friends who are only the same exact like you? You all think the same way, you all do the same thing every day. That's your friend base. The same, okay, so the same exact, okay, yeah, maybe a couple people. Now, how many times do your friends then challenge you to think differently if they're all the same? Because you might not even think of things differently because you might not have those others who are saying, hey, here's a different perspective. And that's what a coalition can do for you. You may have organizations that can come together that have different ways of thinking, diverse people within the organization who can make you think more inclusively about what your issue may be or what is the thing, your mission or your vision that you're trying to accomplish. So that's really important to have those perspectives because it's going to get you to think more creatively, you're going to have more innovation, and then you're going to have a lot more options too. It's not even just about that creative, it's about having a lot of different options because we got to have plans A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, all of those. And sometimes having more people can help you do that. The other thing that's a benefit of coalitions is it allows for leadership development. One of the things that I've seen around some of the coalitions that I've been part of and some of the organizations I've been part of is this really great opportunity for people who may have a passion but haven't really done too much or haven't really felt like they could be empowered to be a leader, have suddenly all of a sudden stepped in that spotlight and said, yeah, I want to do this. This is important to me. It's important to my community. And now I want to figure out how I can be a new leader within this community. And that's great because, again, new leaders, new perspectives, new ways of doing. I actually was the executive director for the Midwest Asian American Students Union for about 3 years. And it was really a great way for us to think about how different schools do things around thinking about APIA issues. I would not have probably learned half of the things I learned as executive director of that organization had I not been able to talk with students from colleges, small private colleges, liberal arts colleges, Research One colleges, public institutions, large institutions, people who had academic programs, people who didn't, people who had lots of faculty and staff support, people who didn't. So it was really great to have all those perspectives and be able to kind of see also how from the conversations and the organization events that we had, new leaders were popping up saying, hey, I could do this. I want to lead this charge on my campus. So there's a lot of really great things that can come out of that. I think also coalitions kind of increase that impact and awareness of each of your organizations. Sometimes on your own, you may not get that interview on TV. You may not get featured in the media, but when you're together and you have all these different organizations working together, sometimes you get a little bit more of that awareness built in. And as you get spotlighted, people get to hear more about what your individual organization is doing, what you value, what are you all about, and then you get more of that awareness within a community. And I think that's really great how coalitions can actually help individuals or individual organizations within the coalition. Of course, the easy thing to say is coalitions give you more resources. You bring a group that has $100 a month and then a group that has $10,000 a month. You come together and hey, now you can do some different things. Or you might have a group that has 20 people and a group that has 100 people, and then you bring them together and you got more stuff, supplies. And not just that, but it's the connections that maybe groups have. It's not even just about the physical supplies, the physical, the finances, but it's also about those relationships, the social networks, the expertise. Some of the experiences that people have had that they can share with you so that you don't go down the same road they already did 5 years ago that didn't work. So I think that's another way in which you can really have great resources added as you build a coalition. Do you have anything to add to that, Emma?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think the connections piece is really important, building relationships in a network, because I just remember a lot of the things I worked on when I was doing campus organizing at Xavier University. Those relationships that I built there are still coming back now, doing LGBT work in the community in Cleveland, running into people at conferences and things. They're like, oh yeah, I remember you from this. So it's really likely that people will remember you and want to bring you along with them. And who knows where you'll end up in the country eventually by building that network.
Absolutely. Okay. Next slide. So the other piece, and I talked a little bit about like media and getting more awareness around your cause, your issue, your organizations individually, but I really think, when you build coalitions, you have strong organizations and individuals working together, you're going to be seen out there a little bit more than you might have been able to be seen as an individual person or even a collective of one organization. So those are really important pieces. As we know, we live in the age of social media now. So I think I remember looking at some post or whatnot, and a student posted something, and then they were able to share it with their network. I'm like, wow, that instantaneously shared it with 3,000 people. Awesome. That's a totally different way in which we can get and spread whatever message it is that you're trying to spread. Also, I think Mariah touched on it, but this building lasting relationships. The hope is that when you build that coalition, that you're going to be able to work through whatever that issue is, whatever the movement is trying to accomplish, but then maybe there's a next step. And you then say, hey, we won this battle, let's go to the next. Because we know that a lot of times issues within the community, they're just, there's that one, but there's that one, and there's that one, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that we have to do. And sometimes these coalitions can continue, and you can continue to work with each other, and you build those relationships. And then, especially when these are coalitions built within a community, a specific community, that's magical, because then you are all working together. You're starting to actually see some synchronicity happening when you continue to work and build those strong relationships. And then finally, like I said in the beginning, I can't stress this enough, it's got to be about building a diverse group of organizations or individuals, a collective of people who have really great diverse experiences, cultures, backgrounds, experiences, because that's how you can strengthen your coalition's strategy. If you're all going to be doing the same thing, what if that doesn't work? Who has a new idea? Who maybe has a different experience that might be able to speak to how you can do it differently? So that's something you want to consider and think about as you build a coalition. It's about being inclusive even as you build a coalition. Sometimes we get tunnel vision. We never think of, oh, well, when we talk about this one issue, maybe there's some intersectionality we're not thinking about. We're not thinking about people with different identities within that one marginalized community that we're even talking about. How are we going to be doing this in the most inclusive way possible? So that's something to consider, and we'll talk more about that too. So I'm going to address the first 4 things on, okay, what are we going to do? How do we do this? Okay, we know there's a benefit. How do we actually build a coalition? So the first thing I always tell people, and whenever students come to my office, is, okay, well, what's your vision? What do you want to? Why do you want to do it? Why is this important? Identify it. So you got to identify what is it that you want to accomplish, and understand it, and actually have a good vision statement of what you hope to be that perfect reality. A lot of times when I do visioning with groups, I tell them, I'm like, okay, we're going to create 2 categories. The first category is your perfect world. What is your perfect reality, your perfect world? And then the second category is, what's the current reality? What's really going on right now? And then let's look at both of those side by side, and then somewhere in there is a vision statement of what you want. And how can you get there? Then you start getting your mission and your goals and all that kind of good stuff. So that's something you can even think about as you're starting out. The second thing, and I have some handouts, I don't think we'll go through everything, but perhaps if you can take some and pass it down. You got to map the power in your community. We're talking about community organizing. We're talking about making change, having to think about, where's the power? Who do we want to influence? And so that's something that, if you look at this, you want to, actually, let me see if I can snag one, thank you. You want to make sure that you're thinking about how you're mapping power. Has anybody done power mapping before or thought about power mapping? Okay, great. So it's something that you want to do, because I think it's important, because you need to know who and what you want to influence and where you want to go. So the first thing is you determine, once you think about what your issue is, you determine who's the person or who's the community or that situation that you want to influence. And then you kind of, and there's an example here, okay? So for example, Walmart wants to build a building somewhere, and there's different people on the council who say yes, and there's a couple who say no, and then there's somebody undecided, and that's the deciding vote. So we want to influence the person who's undecided. So how do we map that how do we power map with that person that we want to influence? Okay, who are closest to them? Who are the people who are in their ear that they value, they trust? Write that down. Create kind of that flow of, okay, here are all the people that might have some influence. So with a council member, you got family, you got constituents, you got other people who they work with, other people on the council may influence them. So how do you start thinking about all those things? And be creative as you think about the influence of whoever you're trying, or the people who influence that person that you're trying to target. Because you have to think out of the box. You can't just say, okay, well, here's 3 people I think influence them. Well, you got to go further. Maybe they're influenced by, on here there's people of faith. If somebody has a faith, and maybe that's something that influences them. Maybe there's someone who writes their paycheck, and that influences them. You got to understand what motivates people, what's out there, and so you can kind of look at how you can write all those different pieces down. Be strategic as you think about who's influencing those people or those targets. Who do you want to start with? Who are the people who are most influential to that target, and get to them straight away. And then, the last piece is just make sure you're being thorough. Ask others, as you have a coalition, you have other people's perspectives. Okay, did we leave anyone out? Did we not think about this community? Earlier I was talking with Amariah about, if you're thinking about targeting or using the influence of a college or university president, the obvious are faculty, staff, students, right? But what about, like for example, our institution is going through accreditation. Would that influence the decision making? Would that influence, how can we think about that? How about what organizations are we, as the university, a part of that they want to keep that reputation or want, to make sure that they're getting certain rankings or whatnot. So thinking broadly, thinking, strategically and being thorough. So that's important. The next thing you want to do is you want to kind of make sure you develop those, what are those power lines? So you're going to see that there's going to be all these different ways in which power is created. There might be ways in which people who are actually on the influencers that you wrote down might be connected. So it could be that, okay, let's just say the university president, we put faculty down, we put students down, and then we put like alumni. And let's just say at this particular university, alumni listen to students pretty much for everything they do. I'm just saying, it's just, an idea. Then how do you make sure that you're thinking about, okay, I can get one if I get the other. So how are we thinking about that, being strategic about that, determining those power lines? And then target the priority relationship. So who is going to influence that target fastest, swiftly, or the most? And so think about how you're going to attack that, how you're going to figure out who within your coalition might have relationships or might know people who are part of that target's power influential lines, and then kind of after that make that plan. Who's going to talk to who? How are we going to actually do something? So this is just a really practical, I wanted to make sure I gave you a tool during our presentation that you could take away, and you could go to your organizations and say, hey, have we done this? Have we thought about who we're trying to influence, and who, how we might be able to map that power in our community and create those lines and think more strategically about how we build our coalitions and how we do this. So this is a tool that I definitely wanted to make sure you had, and make sure that you all can use. The other pieces to building coalitions are really rooted in recruitment. We live in the age of social media, like I said earlier. Recruitment's really different. And so right now, especially when it comes to youth activism, there's a lot of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I'm saying like things like Vine, and I don't know what other things are out there. I'm not as great and savvy with it, but I know that people are reached by those kind of connections, those links. Everybody's on their, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people are on their phones, or a lot of people are on Facebook and just checking things. That's how people receive their information now. It seems like more than it has been in the past. So think about those things. Be strategic about that. But don't forget the people who still enjoy getting the one-on-one, face-to-face, talk to that person type of invite or recruitment. Don't forget the people who still want to see the posters, the people who still want to see it in the newspapers, the people who still want to get a letter. you know, the people still want an email, you know, those types of things. So as much as we want to have you use the technology afforded, there's still other ways in which people still get involved and still are able to be recruited. And be inclusive with your recruitment. Don't just go to who you think already and will probably join you, but you never know what kind of allies you may be able to get if you broaden your scope. So those are things you may want to consider as you build your coalition. And then I'm going to turn over to Amarai to kind of continue with the building the coalition.
Cool. So something else that's really important is making sure that everyone in the coalition is on the same page and has a really clear vision of what the mission is of it. Everyone's coming to the table because they want to achieve this goal, but also recognize that other people have the agenda that they want as well. So for example, when I was working in the LGBTQ Alliance at my university, it had always been a social group for such a long time, and then we had our first queer studies class. So that kind of created a fission in the group where people were really ready to do more activist work on campus and change policies and things like that, whereas other people wanted a social group, and that was also fine. So we did both. And at that point, the mission vision of the organization changed, but we really had to establish expectations around that and be conscious of the environment that we were in as well. Xavier is a Catholic Jesuit institution, so that presented some unique challenges around the issues that we were working on campus. Also, making sure that you have the assets and resources that are available to you and knowing what those are. So for us, really, those assets and resources were other student leaders on campus who were ready to have these conversations, ready to make ripples, so to speak, with us. And that really came about through building relationships, making friends, and something that came out of that was we did a community conversation about the N-word and the F-word on campus. So we partnered with the Black Student Association, and students who may have not come to either group's programming were coming together and having a really interesting conversation about hate speech and words that are okay to use and not okay to use in groups and out groups. So I thought that was a really good step in the right direction. And then later on, that created the type of climate where we could have events where so Ann Coulter came to campus one year, and then Focus on the Family, which is a radical Christian group, came to campus, and we had counter events called Focus on All Families, and we brought all community organizations as well as campus organizations together to do something unique and really create a better really a better climate to have conversations because they weren't happening before. So assets and resources. And then also determining what your goals are ultimately. Has anyone heard of SMART goals before? Use SMART goals? I always forget what the acronym is, but I'm gonna try specific, measurable, attainable, or I think it's achievable, and then realistic and timely. So this is a tool, you can Google SMART goals and it'll come up just to really get on track and organize your focus for what your mission and vision is going to be. And another aspect of creating goals is creating your stretch goals. So your SMART goals are goals that maybe are smaller incremental steps, and your stretch goal is what all of your hopes and dreams, really. So what could you ultimately achieve if you were looking really far out, and what would you want to do with your goals? Another aspect of building a coalition is evaluating yourselves and figuring out what progress you've made, and that can also help you revisit what your vision is if you're not actually on track with what you originally intended and set out to do. And another aspect of that, of coalition building, is having fun and loving each other in that process, because how can we do work and make change if we're not loving ourselves and showing care for one another in the groups that we're working in? I think that making sure that people eat, making sure that people have transportation, making sure that people are healthy and mentally, physically, all of those things, is another part of being on the same page and building friendship and relationship with others. Do you want to talk about this?
Sure.
Okay.
So I put the caution up here because a lot of times we say, yes, let's build coalitions. It's going to be great. We're going to have all this harmony and everything's going to work out. Well, sometimes we have to think about all the challenges we might face with building coalitions. Some of those challenges may be different expectations. One organization may expect to get more out of the coalition, and the other organization, other organization may be understood. And then you're seeing kind of an imbalance of what people are taking away from the experience in the relationship. You might also get what we call mission creep. Has anybody heard about that? Mission creep, it's actually a military word, and it's this idea of taking, what your mission is, and then all of a sudden it's growing, and it's kind of like changing and morphing and becoming something that in the beginning, when y'all were getting together and talking about what you want to do, it no longer looks like that anymore. And that can really change the dynamic of a coalition as well. The other piece is, depending upon what the expectations you set on, you need to make sure that everybody's doing the work. How many of you have been in a student group homework assignment? I think maybe some of y'all have. And so I think, sometimes you get that piece where you think, hey, we're doing a lot of this work and we're not seeing maybe some of the, the things that were expected of other communities. So there's a lot of that goes into it. Remember, we're dealing with people. This is all about, it's not always perfect. And so just to be cautious, you got to be emotionally ready. You got to think about this strategically. If you're an organization or an individual wants to join a coalition or build one, you got to really think about it. Just be clear about what you want to accomplish, and have those checks along the way, kind of what Amariah was saying, assessing, okay, where are we? Are we still doing what we said we were going to do? We are? Great. Okay. A couple months later, are we still doing what we want to do? No? Okay, regroup, let's figure out, do we want to change it? Are we going to go forward? All those pieces are important for you to think about. They could be challenges, and so I caution you, and I always say, a lot of times everybody thinks everything works out perfectly, but you got to be prepared and set out those expectations as well. So, anything else to add to that, Amariah? No.
Okay. So I just wanted to talk for a second about some of the various coalitions that are here present locally, and then also national coalitions, and what some of the successes are and what issues they're working on. So the Cleveland Advocates for Transgender Equality are working on the non-discrimination ordinance in the city, and that is something that a lot of statewide organizations as well as national organizations have been a part of to change. And something that I think has been successful with that is that it has groomed new leadership. It's brought the city together around to have conversations around transgender equality and discrimination that is actually happening in the city in a way that it has not had those conversations before. And the actual coalition part has really brought different types of people together, and most of the individuals that are involved are individuals not associated with organizations, which I think is really beautiful. There are also other movements going on, and I think that something important about those are the Cleveland American Indian Movement, which is a chapter and a part of a larger national organization, but they are constantly being visible and showing up at various events to try to remove the Chief Wahoo logo from the baseball team, from their communications and media, and then also doing education around mascots in schools, because Ohio is has one of the highest native mascots in the country, and so they're doing a lot of education around that. And they have letters and things signed from the ACLU and athletic organizations, so I think that is something that's really important to just to know where to find allies too, especially working with athletics. And then also Organized Cleveland, Collaborative for a Safe, Fair, and Just Cleveland is doing a lot of work, and I'll let people talk about that later, but I think something really beautiful that's coming out of that is that there are so many organizations who have been doing stuff for a long time in Cleveland that I think are getting attention where they weren't before, and more people are becoming aware and joining joining forces. So that's really cool too. And I'm going to highlight the Cincinnati Black United Front because I think that it is pretty relevant. I don't know if anyone has heard of it, but back in Cincinnati in 2001, there were race riots because of a police killing of a young black man, and something that came out of the coalition that the Black United Front built was a collaborative agreement that was implemented and created by the City of Cincinnati, the Fraternal Order of the Police, the ACLU, and the Black United Front. And they actually had a federal, they created a federal person that was placed there to monitor and track use of excessive force in the city for over 6 years. So the results from that weren't that great because Cincinnati is still a city that has racist systems, and they're quite in place in terms of the police. But I think that people coming together again and writing something and implementing it and following up is what it's about. So, and it's an example too. So that's all.
Great. So the last thing we have here is just sort of giving people some information. We received this and we wanted to make sure we just put it out there, that there is an event happening on April 4th and they need volunteers, and it's the Cleveland Renaissance Movement. And so if you're interested, check out the information on there. I just want to say personally, this is really important to me. I'm so glad that we've been able to have these conversations, and I want to, definitely thank all the people involved. I know Dr. Rhonda and Allison, and I know Dr. Mobley, who's not able to be here. She's at a conference, but John Killings in our office, who's done a lot of work around this. Because I think it's important. I actually just moved here from St. Louis, and then I moved to Cleveland, and I'm still in contact with students right now, especially the St. Louis Students in Solidarity Organization coalition that the students built across different campuses, different types of campuses. And I know at some point they're actually meeting tonight, and we'll be giving maybe some best practices around what's been going on with them, and I'm happy to forward that on to this group of folks who've come tonight. So if you want to hear from that organization and maybe even connect with them, and I know they've been doing lots and lots of stuff, even really trying to help each other figure out how to protest. They've been doing sessions on what to do, peaceful protest, how do you help people who got pepper sprayed, how do you get emergency assistance if somebody gets hurt. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff that they're doing, and I'd love to share that information. I know we need to have time for the students to talk, so we're going to get out of here, but we thank you so much for listening to us. We hope it's been helpful, and if you have any questions, you can definitely see us after this.
Courtney and Lizard. All right. So y'all usually push the button on the bottom.
You got it?
Mm-hmm. Let you have two folks get up. Yeah.
I just notes.
So what's about to happen is each person is going to talk for about 5 to 7 minutes. They're going to each introduce themselves. They're going to give you an example of solidarity, a coalition building, challenges, things that have worked well to kind of get us started, and then we'll open up for a question and answer and have a conversation. So that's what's about to happen. So, cool.
Okay.
All right.
Should I start, I guess? All right, well, thank you for the introduction, Dr. Rhonda. My name is Duck Rhee. I'm a second-year sociology and social work student here at Case Western Reserve University. Thank you for having me. First of all, I was quite shocked by Dr. Rhonda. She actually called us activists, and that, to me, was so surprising to hear. That's the first time I actually was labeled an activist. So it's a very positive label. I will definitely endorse it. And I think it's interesting being at this position right now. You might know that I've been spearheading the gender-inclusive housing issues here at Case Western Reserve. And I've never actually considered myself an activist. In fact, you know, being in sociology, I always try to look for, let's look at a different perspective. Let's try to look at it from the outsider's perspective and see how we can tackle the issue that way. I was personally never involved in activism, as some people call it. And so this is really exciting. I'm going to pass on the mic because I know we're limited on time. I could talk all day, but Destiny has some really good things to say. However, we will come back and talk about gender-inclusive housing. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Destiny Hinton and I'm president of the African American Society. And last semester with the African American Society, a couple of different concerns was brought to me as president as far as some situations that students were involved in, as well as you all may know, a security a conversation with a security consultant. Sorry, tongue twisted for me. And it went kind of left, as some people would say, not right. And so with that, we sparked up what we titled the We Belong Here movement in addressing just the feeling of not belonging here as African American students, but also it became, of course, that a lot of other students in marginalized communities felt the same way. And through that, we started to build different coalitions on campus with students of different ethnicities and different identities, as well as different faculty members and different organizations and departments that we hadn't in the past worked with. And it's obviously turned out really amazing and opened a lot of opportunities for us. And I guess I'll just answer the questions when they come out. So.
Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney again. So should I just introduce myself or just give the whole thing right now? Introduce. Okay, so yeah, I'm Courtney. You know, I've been working part of that 1446 campaign for, you know, transgender equality in the restrooms here in Cleveland for a few months. And also I've been involved in a lot of actions regarding police brutality, following the deaths of, you know, Mike Brown, Tamir Rice, Nisha Anderson. So that's what I've been involved in for, you know, the past half year or so.
Hi, I'm Lizard, and I misrepresented myself earlier. Sorry. So I've been really active with the Black Lives Matter campaign in Cleveland. I've done a lot of action organizing, started activism when I was 15, worked with the Imperial Women's Coalition, Occupy, pretty much almost women's reproductive rights, the whole nine, and currently working on the police brutality, stop mass incarceration stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
I didn't think I had to press these students because they like real talkative and activists. Here we go. And Naomi and Amarai, y'all jump in here too. So talk a little bit about the campaigns that you all are involved in and the ways in which you've had to leverage or build solidarity or engage in solidarity efforts to further those campaigns.
Do you want us to talk more about organizational or like city, like government type things?
Well, talk from your organizational standpoint, like what kind of campaigns you've been involved with, or wherever you see solidarity working itself out in terms of the ways that you've been engaged in efforts.
So this is in regards to everything that I've been working on in Cleveland. I mean, I just wrote some things down as far as like needs and things that people have actually helped with. So like the most basic things have been car rides, bus fare, things of that nature. Like that's been really instrumental because a lot of us are broke. We don't have money, we don't have cars, so we need to get places to do things. So people pick us up and that works, that helps out. Bail money, legal funds. I got a lawyer for free who helped me beat a case, so that was sweet. People supplying food. Shout out to Food Not Bombs. They're awesome for that. Like, you need to feed your activists, feed your workers. people live streaming things or filming things always helps out. And one of the biggest things I could think of for like a solidarity need or ways that solidarity comes into play, just like having your physical presence at actions or things that people are planning, because there's really a lot of power in numbers.
So I recently worked with Code Pink from Los Angeles, and we were doing the Boycott Remax campaign. And Boycott Remax has branches from basically pretty much every country, but they now have a branch in Israel, and Israel Remax is selling Palestinian settlements. So I went to Vegas for the past, like a couple of weeks ago, and worked with them on organizing and a couple of actions that we did down there for 2 days or so, where we actually went to Mandalay Bay because they were having a convention there where all the CEOs of every Remax branch was actually in the same building with each other. So we actually went to the actual convention and we talked to a lot of the realtors about whether or not they knew if this was did they know that this was happening? A lot of them didn't, and it was kind of sad. But I built a lot of solidarity with the Palestinian people, because they were like, oh, we're so glad that someone from Black Lives Matter came, and now we feel, connected in a way. So my idea of solidarity would be between all the groups that have the same encompassing issue, which is racism, basically. So that would be between Black Lives Matter, the Palestinian, Arabic, Muslim people, between the LGBTQ community, basically just any group that has that huge issue that seems to be circulating around pretty much everywhere. So.
I would say that the most surprising part, well, actually, going back to how Naomi said that coalition building is also amongst individuals. I never thought of it in that way. I always thought when you think of coalitions, like organizations coming together. But I would say that's the most surprising part for me, was when we started out doing things for the We Belong Here movement, so many students and alumni and grad students began coming up to us saying how much they needed it, and just basically breaking down in tears as to how important this was to them. And so that's where I saw our strongest support coming from, just individuals that had bad experiences on campus and that we would have never known about until we actually said something is wrong on our campus, and they began reaching out to us, and we kind of worked together along those lines. But also certain departments and have been really supportive after we started, as far as SJI, OMA, Social Justice Institute, the Office of Multicultural Affairs, the Center for Women, and the LGBT Center. Those are the main supporters that we feel are always there, probably spur of the moment. Just whenever we need them, it's crazy. Everything they do for us, from money to sitting in their office crying, all kinds of stuff. A lot goes on behind closed doors, but from just that support that we've gotten from those, and then also with different departments, as far as the president's office and also student affairs, they reach out because they can't ignore us anymore. So because we're so important now. But so yeah, I like to give a lot of credit, especially to the LGBT Center, Center for Women, and OMA, because I know they've always been there. So it's really great to have that support, and now the support of the elites, as some call them.
Well, I'd like to kind of offer a little bit of a different perspective on what we may commonly see as organization of solidarity. We commonly see solidarity as something that's happening within an organization, whether that be derives from the objective of the organization or the goals or whatever, what have you. I'd like to challenge everyone in this room to think about solidarity in terms of not just your community, but the community that surrounds everyone. The issues that are being that are affecting the people within your community and outside of your community. So when I think of solidarity, I think, well, where does that necessarily come from? And for me, that really came from discussions with people who were generally opposed to what I was going for. So I'll talk very generally without going too deeply into gender-inclusive housing. But in the process of me asking people for help and what do you think is a good idea, I gained a lot of good, valuable information that I could never gain from, not talking to those individuals. And the individuals that I specifically targeted to talk to were people who I believed might be opposed to my goals. That's something, creating a discussion like that can really foster an environment for discussion. And I truly believe that once you start talking to the individuals who are the opposers or oppressors or what have you, they will begin to understand and keep it in the back of their minds that there are different perspectives, and not only their own. I feel like that's very important in creating solidarity, not just within the group, but also outside the group. So yeah, great. Let's move on.
What have been some of the challenges? Naomi and Mariah threw up caution on their in their PowerPoint. What have been some of the challenges of coalition building and creating solidarity? This is the space where we go into it, y'all. This is these are the folks
really
who want to
Okay.
know what the real deal is, what we can gain, what we have to navigate. All of this is important, right?
A lot. So, as far as challenges regarding coalition building, as it relates to Cleveland specifically, I think a lot of the problems that I've ran into is the issue of respectability politics, definitely. In Cleveland, a lot of the very powerful organizations with a lot of money won't fund you or even look at you like you're worth anything if you, don't dress a certain way, if your hair is not a certain way, if you don't speak a certain way, if you don't have this amount of money, if you got holes in your pants. And I still talk to them because they have money, but it's really hard to talk to them because, they're not going after the same goal that I'm going after, but they have resources that sometimes we need to get to the place that we want to get to. So that's been really, really tough. And I've had to learn that the hard way here in Cleveland. But, on the flip side, there's a lot of really good people who will help you regardless of, what you look like or what you speak like. So that's great. Yeah, I guess I just want to start off with that.
Elders. I done had so much trouble. Just the idea that there is a movement being built in the 21st century that is not the 60s, but sort of relates very heavily to the 60s. Bridging that gap between the civil rights era and the now era, and the fact that I'm not, I wasn't born in the 60s, y'all, it's a difficult thing to do. And also having to understand that elders have experience. We may not have as much experience as they do now, but everybody starts somewhere, basically. So just being able to bridge the gap between the elders and the youth today who are doing activist work, all that good stuff.
Oh, well, while Destiny thinks, I have a quick story that does play off of what we're talking about, which is challenges and building coalitions and whatever. I'll bring up a quick story because I do really feel like the personal events are what really creates this impetus for really striving for change. So this quick story, I have a friend, I won't tell you their name, but I will refer to them with the pronoun they, transgendered individual. One day I was actually right outside of this building walking towards Euclid, and my friend, they came to me just yelling, crying, screaming, and I was wondering, well, what is happening? I've never seen this person do this, and I was close friends with this person for a very long time, so I asked, and they said, look, Case Western Reserve, my home, is not going to offer gender-inclusive housing. We're pretty much all dead. And to me, that was very shocking to hear as a friend because being a cisgendered male who's rarely marginalized in Case, I really felt that I never had even thought of why gender-inclusive housing was even an issue. The challenge to what I bring up there is the lack of visibility that is just rampant in a lot of these social cases. People want to help, and most of the time, people will go out of their way to help you. We live in a society where we often think that, we're on our own. This is not true. The issues often that don't go resolved are because people just don't know about them. So spreading the news, word of mouth, I feel like is very important, and how to overcome that challenge. The second thing I'd like to talk to you about is navigating social structures that are hierarchical, such as an institution. At Case Western Reserve, as you know, there are people with great power distances, such as President Snyder, and from there, the provost, deputy provost, the list goes on, and there's a certain hierarchy. Not often does a student directly go to those individuals because they're afraid of any social consequence, they're just nervous, a lot of different cases. But I would encourage and challenge everyone to attempt to navigate these social hierarchies and directly navigate it. Don't go through the bureaucratic process of just, hey, what can this person offer me? Go straight to the top and say, hey, listen, this is a pressing issue. We really need your help on this. These are the consequences if you don't help us. Can you please help us? And that, I feel like a direct approach is sometimes looked down upon, but is very effective in the case of a dire situation. And lastly, I'd just like to say that, to revamp what I was going to say earlier, just talking about the issue, creating a space where people can safely talk about it, and even venturing out and going out to places where, places where you don't feel safe, and talking to those people. Because those people, if you get those people on board, you're going to have a successful time. And that's all I'd like to say about overcoming. Do you have a question? There.
Wait for the mic, Sam. You know the
Thank you very much. When you spoke of,
use the mic, Sam.
You spoke of coalition, and I'm trying to understand I understand the term coalition, but I'm trying to understand the context of coalition, because a coalition is basically it's a combination of common communication or like-minded objectives. But how do you extract and erect the thinking of a person that doesn't know how to build a coalition because that person, him or her, can't see past classism or race. They can't see past that in order to build that coalition, which in turn would affect other communities in which they wish to engage in order to change. So how does a person get involved? Like when you put the word coalition, it's on a screen, it's coming from the aspect of coalition. I mean, it's already completed. It's at its final stage. It's at its stage of perfection, coalition. But for a person that's trying to, where they want to get involved, but they don't, like the guy said, person doesn't want to talk to you, you got holes in your jeans or, you know, your hair, whatever, they don't want to be involved, that's kind of like, you know, a person's outside of that box. So how does a person get engaged where they want to do the right thing and they have the right mindset, but they can't see past their four walls or their circle?
Do you want to answer this?
Yeah, I just think that you know, we need to build our own coalitions that like we want to see with the types of people in them that we want inside of them, regardless of, you know, what they look like, where they come from, class, race, gender identity, all of those things that we talk about. Like, we don't need, like, I don't think that we need the whole society to be inside of our coalition. That would be great if one day they had like the society of like great people who all treat each other awesome. But I think that you just try the best that you can to get the kinds of people, like-minded people in your coalition or in your organization, and just start from there. Like, what's the statistic? It's like you need 3.5% of a population to like start a revolution.
It's equal to 11 million people. But a lot of people have, a lot of organizations in the past have succeeded with less than that. So like anything less than 11 million, you still might be able to succeed. Right, depending on the population in which you are in. Our population is obviously much smaller, so that wouldn't be 11 million people. But anyhow, as far as getting involved is concerned, there are so many opportunities to get involved, it's like not even funny. Like, you can go into or already in a neighborhood in which you live and start something. You can start a garden, you can start a community center, you can start programs, you can start just about anything that you can think of in order to make a difference in your community. So that's just my 2 cents on how to get involved with coalitions. And the thing about it is if you do these types of things and you do this type of work, they'll come to you. I wasn't involved in the Black Lives Matter movement at all, but someone reached out to me and said, hey, you should come to this meeting. And I said, okay, and here I am. So just do the best work that you can within your community and in other communities if you can, and these coalitions and these organizations will come to you.
Naomi or Amarai, did you all have anything you wanted to add to that? Or?
The only thing is, yeah, you know, we live in a society where there are going to be people who you may want or need their resources, but they're going to look at you a funny way. They're not going to take you seriously because of classism, racism, sexism, homophobia, all of those things. And sometimes but we still have to build a coalition somehow, or you still need to get some resources somehow. And so what do? You may think strategically. You may say, okay, I know if I walk in there, they're not going to take me seriously. But I got these other people in my coalition, and it's not right. But maybe they'll listen to this person somehow, and then we can talk about that, and maybe then that person can maybe help educate, perhaps, and then bring me in somehow in that later. Because remember, if you're within a coalition, you have all these different people that might have different influence, different power, just different identities that other people. You know, that's why we need allies within coalitions. I think that's another thing. We may not, like, you know, I think Courtney said, it's never going to be that wide of a net where everybody's going to be part of everybody's coalition, because that would just be the whole world. But who are the allies who can be in the spaces that we cannot be, who can speak for the communities that cannot speak in those spaces, so we can get the resources and the funding or the whatever it may be in order to move forward with that? Because I think sometimes we need to talk about what allies can help us to do in coalitions, if that makes any sense. Amarai, did you have?
Yeah, I just had another question to add to the pool. It's the question we talked about yesterday. And the question is, how do you recognize that every issue is more than a single issue, and build coalitions and a volunteer base that is diverse in nature, acknowledging that there are people who have intersecting identities that are also oppressed identities, working on issues?
Yes. Okay. So while the microphone is making its way back up, I'll just add to the conversation food for thought as they get ready to speak. And I actually, Sam, I would say that one of the things that has to happen is that different people come together for different reasons, calling themselves a part of a coalition. And one of the things that was raised earlier is that different people have different motivations, they have different agendas, they have different expectations. And I think part of the work that has to be done is so that you and I could be in a coalition together with Courtney and Lizard and Destiny and Duck and Mariah and Naomi and some of the other people in the room. But your agenda is more critical of class dynamics. I'm saying it's because you raised the issue. Your agenda may be more critical of class dynamics. My agenda may focus on class and race and gender. Somebody else's agenda may focus on none of those things, but just want to focus on, challenging a policy, right? And so, but we're all operating under some particular issue, right? And so what I think needs to happen is that, and maybe everybody can speak to this, how it's happened or not happened and what has been the ramifications of that, is that we need to do the internal questioning, self-critical analysis of our own particular ideologies, motivations that are driving us, how we see ourselves connected to the people that we're actually engaged with, how that fits with the broader agenda that we're trying to achieve, and also be very clear about what we're bringing to the table and whether we're in agreement or not, right? I mean, this happens around race dynamics as well, right? In terms of questions of who is an ally and what people play what roles under what circumstances, right? And what things are we actually going to be arguing and pushing for in terms of any particular agenda on any given day under the broader issue. And so I think it's incumbent upon people to do the internal self-critical work, the individual self-critical work, and then the internal collective self-critical analysis work as and while and when they're in the streets, whatever the actions are that they're doing and whatever the challenges are that they're trying to, the challenges are that they're facing and trying to transform. I think that's critical because a lot of times we don't talk about it. We all for, we're anti-racist, but then we don't get into discussions of what that means in terms of patriarchy and gender, which is more than one issue at a time is actually happening, what that means to be heterosexist, what does that mean to be, anti-capitalist or not, what does that mean in terms of then what we're going to achieve? And so, and I know some of these young people have, and students and others who are active have faced some of these issues. So, to the degree they're willing to share some of those dynamics with us, how they navigated it, how they're navigating it now, and how they may put it to the side to get to some broader issue to actually move forward an agenda, as we've talked about earlier through Naomi's and Mariah's presentation in terms of how do you actually move things forward, I think is critically important. With that segue, and the mic is up here, maybe we should get that other mic in motion so that a mic can be over here and a mic can be over there, and we can facilitate the dialogue, and then we'll come into the audience for Q&A. It looks like it's open. Hey?
I can't even answer the question because she's like, Dr. Rhonda's a genius. Just answer the question. But yeah, that was it. That was the answer.
We'll talk, Courtney, and I'm gonna put Courtney and Lizard on the spot just a second, okay? And then I'm gonna come to Destiny, and I'm meeting Duck, so Duck will get put on the spot too once I know where I'm gonna put him on the spot at. Talk about allyship. Talk about, it could be around race, it could be around gender, it could be around generation, right? You've raised some of those issues, and I know those are some things that you've been struggling with in community and navigating well too. So we don't want to just talk about the challenges. We want to talk about how we successfully navigate and or move on. Or how we're continuing to work on it. So, you don't have to get into, like name calling or nothing like that, nitty gritty, but put it out there, in terms of what you all have been engaging with.
Well, what? All right, yeah, well, so, my main focus is, police brutality and this very specific ordinance here in Cleveland regarding transgender equality. So, and those issues obviously intersect because, trans people and specifically black trans people are, some of the people that are at the highest risk for any type of violence, whether it's police violence or civilian violence. So, when I'm focusing on this this ordinance, it kind of frustrates me that there aren't more people that are involved in the sort of police reform movement, it frustrates me that those people aren't pushing to get this ordinance passed as well at the same time, because it completely goes hand in hand with what we're seeing with police violence. And it can be really tough to navigate some of these spaces when we're talking about police reform, because some people just aren't receptive to issues regarding gender inclusivity. So I try to have that conversation often. I mean, I just got Lizard involved with the campaign yesterday, and she's been out on the streets with me protesting for a while, like 3 months. So yeah, it's tough. Like, and just like a little personal anecdote, like I remember going to meet Joe Worthy for the first, or not the first time, but probably the second time when Tamir got shot, and I remember I was wearing pink nail polish, and I was wearing pink nail polish, and I had a meeting with Joe at a coffee shop, and I was like, damn, I don't know how Joe's gonna think about this, so I'm gonna take this off. So I think that people who don't fit like that cis hetero mold, you know, it can be tougher for those people to sort of navigate spaces, because they have to not bring their whole identity to the table when they do certain things in certain fields. So yeah.
Okay, so I want to implement something right now that I learned at an OSA training, which is when someone says they're confused, everyone claps. So can everybody clap? Yay! Okay. So I'm going to say that I'm confused. Can someone please explain to me what cisgendered means?
I guess, man, I wish I could say the very technical, give you the dictionary definition, but the way I know it, and please correct me if I'm wrong. No, actually, you got this. I have more faith in you than I have in me. So, please do. Okay.
Cisgender means that you identify as the gender or sex that you were assigned at birth. And it also means not transgender. So cisgender individuals are people whose gender identity is the same as the gender that they were assigned at birth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not confused anymore.
The word cis means on the same side. CIS. Cis means on the same side, whereas trans means across. So those are the prefixes. Yeah.
No. I have one. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Yay. What were we talking about, y'all? What was we talking about? Okay, I understand. So, one of my issues that I've been trying to navigate so hard around is language, which is actually something that Dr. Rhonda and I had a conversation with Ruby Sales about a couple of months ago. And I've been trying to change my language, because I notice when I speak to people and I don't necessarily know what they identify as, I usually just identify them with what I see them as, and that is not okay. If I see them as this person and they don't see themselves as that person, then what's the point of me labeling them? So that's usually my issue. Also, just being in a group of people doing action organizing, and then noticing other groups that are doing action organizing but not necessarily having the same agenda as the group that I'm working with. And it's usually something that's more along the lines of pushing, let's say pushing a website or pushing their name or stuff like that. It bothers me a little bit because they're using people who have been hurt, murdered by a system that isn't built for them, and it's just irking my nerves. But I tend to address the issue as, is this a group that I can work with? Can we make change together, or should I continue doing the work that I'm doing by myself or with the group that I'm working with? Most of the time it's usually, okay, I can kind of handle it, we'll figure it out, maybe have a talk. And other times it's, no, I really don't like this group. I'm having some issues with their particular things, or what? Politics, basically. Like, I have some issues with their politics. And I've seen this with like a couple of uprising groups around the Cleveland area that are, I'm up here with them. It's not good. But at the same time, I kind of feel as if my own judgment is being clouded in a way. So I try to address that too, like, hold on, wait a minute, calm down, lizard. We're gonna have to fix this real quick before you even go any further than what you're doing right now, because let me tell y'all, it's a struggle. And that's probably the main two issues that I have, is with people who are pushing a completely opposite agenda, but using those names as people that they support, but aren't actually supporting them.
Questions? We open the floor for questions. Sam got us started, so we're supposed to go to 8:30, but we can go a little longer just to make sure we have a little more dialogue, and then we'll see if people have final closing comments they'd like to raise. So please identify yourself when you take the mic.
Hi, my name is India Johnson, and Dr. Rhonda sort of touched on this already, but when you're working with groups, how do you reduce that I, me, and my mentality that each group has going into a coalition? So when you're trying to work together, it's not just that they have separate agendas, but is that they identify a certain way. How do you help erase, or at very least reduce, that mentality of I'm looking out for me and mine, so if something, pops up, nobody's running around in different directions trying to salvage their group, but maybe to the detriment of other people in the group?
I guess that's where it comes, where the mission, developing your mission and developing your vision as an organization comes. It's so important, because when you have that, you always have to remind yourself, continuously be self-evaluating and being critical of what the mission is and what you want to do in that moment in order to get to that vision, or to make sure you're pursuing the mission. I guess I can give an example of that. Was one night we were just working on trying to figure out how to make sure that the We Belong Here movement was specific enough to African American students, because we were African American students, but also wasn't exclusive and didn't exclude other students of different identities. And we were trying to think of a way to kind of embrace, and like a coming out party, oh, everybody, come on, let's be together on this. But it was a matter of me, I didn't agree with what 8 other people in the room were thinking. And so it was okay, Destiny, obviously it doesn't matter what you think right now. If, understanding that the vision and so many other people believed in what this goal right here, they believed in doing this, and they believed that was the right way. And so it was okay. And it was actually something they wanted me to do. So I was I really don't want to do this, but since it's a part of what we need to get to, it's a strategy to get to where we want, then I just have to do it and suck it up for the greater good.
Can you just state the question without the microphone?
So
like I, me, and my mentality that people have going into it based on their identifiers. So let's say something happens, or I don't know, the law comes down on your group, I don't know, but something happens. How do you prevent everyone from like trying to protect them and their own, like to the detriment of other people in the group?
Okay, and I'm gonna repeat it with the mic because we taping. So the question is, how do we get people to move beyond, or how do you deal with or navigate the I, the me, and the mine? And particularly when you get into the tough spots, the critical spots, how do you prevent or navigate them just caring for their own self or own collective within the broader coalition? Because that could actually undermine and cause detriment to the actual work. So I think, is that accurate?
Okay, well, I can kind of speak on that. I think it definitely has to do with the organization's culture of care. Whether that be something that's already solidified within the mission statement, or that's something that's informal. It really doesn't matter. In fact, I am a true believer that coalitions don't really have to be a formal thing. It can just be a network of friends that they call themselves the coalition. I was going to talk about the fact that, well, train's running off. Sorry. Yeah, I was going to talk about the fact that this culture of care, if you instill within your organization this culture of care, this what I mean by culture of care is not just, oh, I care for you. It's more of, how can I help you? How can I actually serve your needs and see myself to accomplish those needs? So you talked about I, me, my, whatever. A lot of coalitions and a lot of organizations have a deliberate amount of self-interest, whoever it is. I suggest turning that around and saying, how can I help you as an individual? How can I do that? And that really empowers both individuals. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. Great, okay.
I feel like the question was sort of like when things go down and people are trying to look out for themselves, sort of thing. Is that what the question was? Like what do you do to like make sure that everyone's backs are covered, sort of thing? I think that comes like super early on in the building process. Like that's the kind of stuff where it's like there's meetings upon meetings upon meetings, and they last for like an hour or 2 hours or whatever, but people go over each other's houses and like chill and just have food and like really learn who each other is. And I think that's where the security comes into play, like knowing who you're in the fight with, and really knowing at the end of the day who's going to have your back and who you're not so sure about, and just staying close to those people who you know have your back at the end of the day. And I think that makes the bond stronger, and there's not as much room for error or exposure if you have people who really care about you in the fight.
So I'll give an example. Not too long ago, we had we had 2 4-mile marches on MLK Day. Whew, let me tell you. I actually walked 8 miles that day. So, but when we got onto the Veterans Memorial Bridge, knowing who is the point person for this is a struggle. Also knowing who does not do well under pressure in these particular cases. I was standing next to someone who recently did 3 tours in Iraq and does not do very well under pressure, especially with police presence. And actually in turn ended up hurting me because of his fear. So knowing who has your back, also knowing people's mental states is also a good thing to know, because when you know, excuse my language, shit does hit the fan, you need to know, can this person handle it? Also, do they need to be here at this time if we know that this is it has potential to be a high risk thing or a high risk action, let's say. So knowing someone's mental state, also being aware of your surroundings, and being aware of your actual like exits, your just normal stuff. Where can you go if something happens? How can I get people out of here if something happens? You know what I mean? So just having those designated point people that you go to say, what can we do? How do we get out of here? Is always a good thing. Mental state and your surroundings.
Other questions before I go back to Sam? Sam's had his hand up, but I want to make sure the mic is circulating. Let me get to the back.
So as you're building coalitions and being pulled in different directions by different groups and organizations, how do you take care of yourself? So what's your self-care? How do you preserve your identity and your full self as you move between groups and move along with people?
And before y'all answer that, I want to thank Destiny for being on the panel. She actually has an Afro-Am Society meeting that she's running off to now. So thank you, Destiny.
So currently, I'm still learning how to do self-care because I obviously have not done a lot of that in the past. So in my process of learning how to do self-care, I've read a number of articles that Rachel has sent to me via text on how to do self-care. And it's tough. It's tough. You have to learn how to say no. And saying no in this type of situation is so hard for me to do because I want to say yes to just about everything. There's another event that I really wanted to go to today, but I couldn't go, and I was like, it's okay. There'll be another one. So being able to say no is a tough one for me, but I'm learning to do it. As far as like pulling and grabbing for coalitions, which I have dealt with recently, I've been really good at saying no to a lot of organizations and coalitions and collectives because there are certain things in those groups alone that I do not agree with. Like, of course, their politics, respectability politics, et cetera, et cetera. Also, their leadership. There may be a lot of things that I don't agree with these particular groups, which is the reason that I don't want to go with them, but they're fighting for me. So just being able to not really identify with one particular organization or coalition or collective really helps broaden your connection with other groups because you're not connected to those and you don't have that, you know, that list of policies and guidelines that you have to follow, and you can't do this particular thing because you are attached to this particular name, which I'm not a huge fan of, but self-care, it needs to happen.
Sweet. Yeah, a lot of the same things, just saying no to people. When you do this type of stuff, I'm sure all of you know that, it's very rigorous. A lot of you have full-time jobs or go to college or something. I don't. I'm unemployed, so I can do a lot of stuff. But, actually, I'm not going to lie. That was the reason that I quit my job last year, is because I was working on a campaign that I'm still working on, and I couldn't balance my 50-hour-a-week factory job and also being like a 25 to 40-hour-a-week quote-unquote activist. So and that's fine because it's led me to a lot of great things and great experiences. But at this point now, even just doing activist stuff, I have to say no a lot. And I think it was like a week ago, I was very stressed out and I was just not able to do things, so I just stayed in the house for 3 days. There's this Drake lyric that Mo knows, and it's just about how he just stayed in his house for a week with the phone off and just didn't answer anyone's calls. That's what I had to do, is just not gonna take any calls, not gonna do anything, just relax and do your thing. It could be simple things, just going out to eat dinner or hanging out with your family or taking a nap. That's self-care, and it's real. You need to do it. So
for the record, I took a nap before this, so. But talking about self-care, really, often when you are either leading an organization or doing the organizing yourself, you get tunnel vision. Let's get this mission accomplished. Let's really strive for this. And often you feel a lot of things are slipping you by, like the time you spend with your friends, your academic life may suffer. I know mine did just a little bit. But that's all right, as we all come back to things. But the point I do want to make is that don't hold yourself necessarily accountable. You can also rely on friends to hold you accountable. And I've definitely utilized the friend resource a lot more than I can say. I mean, I know that I've returned the favor in the past too. My friend was like, "Hey, can you make sure like I'm up at this time? I need to do this. I got to get these things done. Just hold me accountable." And having someone that's there that knows what's kind of going on really helps the situation. So I don't know if that'll help anyone else, but that helped me in the past.
Naomi and Mariah, did you all want to add anything? No? Okay. So why don't we get like 1 or 2 more questions at the max and then have some closing comments. And Sam? You forgot your question. What? Sam forgot his question. Any other questions?
I think I have a question.
You got a question? Oh,
I have a question. Actually, I have a question. Let me sit on the other side. Hold on. So, I don't think I quite understood, your name's?
Duck.
Duck? Okay. So I don't think I quite understood, Duck, what you were saying when you were talking about going to the head of departments.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When talking about, what is it, co-ed living or gender inclusive housing. Are you talking about transgender people?
I'm talking about whatever gender you want or non-gender you
so
want.
all genders, okay.
That's right.
I don't think I quite understood what you were saying, honestly. So can you go further into that?
Sure, I can definitely explain that. So in community building and when you're being taught some of the community building stuff, I'm sure you'll realize that there's a couple of camps that people fall into, and it's like there's a community building where it's consensus approach, or a community building where it's very direct approach. The one I focused on myself was a combination of both, but it was more direct approach. And what I meant by that was organizing not only myself, but the people around me to believe in the same goals as I do. So what I did was I physically, well, this was due to networking again, but I was able to navigate the social structure to go to a person of high power distance. In my case, the deputy provost of the university. Luckily, she was, well, this was a slightly strategic choice too, because I knew that she was in charge of the LGBT center. People report to her for various housing needs and things like that. So I took a direct approach, and that's what I mean by really attacking the head of power distances, or whatever organization might have those differences. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Any other questions? I want to leave a question on the floor. Maybe we can answer or not. Maybe Mariah and Naomi can address it, or Liz or Courtney or Duck, or not. Maybe it's something we consider. I want us to consider what is the difference. And so my sort of view on this is built into the question. But what is the difference between coalition building and solidarity? And then how do they work together potentially, or work at odds with each other? How do they operate differently? I don't know, Mariah or Naomi, if you want to address that, whatever your view is, and or Lizard, Courtney, or Duck.
I think for me, you can start with being a coalition where you have different, missions, you have different perspectives or people who are identities that are part of each individual group. And then because of what people have set up here, like the relationship building, the finding people who are going to have your back, you then become, I think there could be this progression of, okay, we're in a coalition, we're fighting for the same thing, but I don't necessarily have a relationship with you. I don't necessarily, trust you as an individual, but we're working together because we can do this. We can make something, we can accomplish something, but perhaps there might even be a progression. I mean, this is just how I'm seeing it, where you start there, but then you get to know each other. You get to realize that you're going through some of the same things. You get to see each other as human beings, as people who need self-cares, people who are having a hard time. I mean, we didn't address this here, and I was going to ask, but sometimes what's the motivation? Sometimes you hit roadblock upon roadblock upon roadblock, and nothing is happening. How do you keep everybody motivated? How do you keep going? And sometimes in those kind of, I think, valleys, you might build a stronger relationship, and then you see each other and build, I think, stronger solidarity. I use the word synchronicity. Sometimes we think about that in a different way. We're like, I was telling, actually, Mariah, when we were talking about doing this, I had this one presentation that I went to about this idea of, okay, well, when you're doing things together, what's the difference between collaborating, co-sponsoring, and conspiring? And this idea, people always say, oh, well, I don't like the word conspire. And it's like, why? Because it just makes it seem like conspiracy and it's bad and it's negative. I'm like, but if you think about it, conspire means to breathe together. You're breathing together to live, to do what you need to be doing to survive. And so sometimes I like it when you conspire. And so I'm wondering how, and I'm not maybe answering the question, but I'm wondering how that all can kind of fit together and flow together as you maybe a coalition and then you see each other as humans, you become more in a solidarity, you become more, have synchronicity, and then you conspire and you breathe together, you work together, and it becomes something more beautiful than you probably even imagined. So I'm sure that happens. I'm sure there's times when it doesn't. When you're just like, nope, really don't like your politics, don't like your philosophy, this was a bad idea, let's split. So I think both of those can happen, and like Dr. Rhonda said, I think you got to do that internal work, and you also have to do not just the internal work group-wise, but I think the internal work yourself. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? What do you want to, how is your integrity going to be compromised if you do this or not? And, I think Liz was saying that you got to do that work personally. So that's just my thought. I don't know, Amarai, do you help?
Yeah, mine is just really quick and simple. My response to that question is, I can be in solidarity with you, but I also don't have to be in your coalition. When it involves coalitions, it becomes a more in-depth conversation, which a lot of people don't like to have or don't have a lot of time to have. So you can say, I'm in solidarity with you, I believe in what you believe in, but I'm also not going to go to your meeting. And I don't know, it's just, that just seems like a little bit more of a difference to me, because I can show up at your rally, but not show up at your meeting, but that means that I have solidarity with you, not necessarily meaning that I'm a part of your coalition, I'm in your group, I'm always with you, we know each other personally. That's the difference to me, is just the difference between knowing someone personally because they've been to all your meetings and you've had talks with them constantly, and someone walking in off the street and saying, I have solidarity with you because I believe in the same thing you believe in.
Do you want to go ahead? Or? I'll go ahead. Sure. Okay, well, I don't really think that coalition building and solidarity have to be mutually exclusive. I feel like they're very closely intertwined. What I mean by that is I feel like coalitions and just building communities in general are the means to which you can advance solidarity. That's the way I see it. Your opinions may differ, but I feel like that really helps set the vision and really propel it.
I think that solidarity is a super strong feeling, and you have to be very principled when you're speaking about solidarity, because it means that, to me, solidarity means that you are, in agreement about a lot of things, about a lot of ideologies and philosophies, and the way that you sort of interact with people in your daily life. And I think that in coalitions, I'm trying to give an example here. There's a bunch of organizations here working to reform the police. There's countless numbers of organizations, and a lot of the organizations don't necessarily agree on each other's politics, but they know that there is an issue with police beating and killing people. So they can all come around on that one issue, and that could be a coalition to a coalition end police violence. That could be a coalition. However, there might not be there's definitely not solidarity amongst each organization and amongst individuals within those organizations regarding certain politics. So Yeah, that's, you can definitely be in coalition with people and advance certain causes or a broad cause, but solidarity takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of deep conversations.
And so that reminds us as we move to closure. Now, see if all of us have closing comments, but that reminds us that we also have to pay attention to, when we think about coalition building and solidarity, questions of not only politics and philosophy, personal work, internal collective work, and external work, but we also kind of have to think about the ways in which we're engaging across those lines and really creating a critical analysis and analytical framework in terms of understanding the intellectual components as well as the activist components on the ground. And one of the things that the reason I ask the question is because sometimes I find an example that an organization that may be developing an anti-racist stance from a Black perspective, let's just say that, right? In other words, it's Black people getting together and they have an anti-racist stance. And, then there's this kind of discussion about, well, if you keep it only Black, does that mean that you're excluding other people? And can people be in solidarity with that organization as a Black organization that cares about Black people without necessarily having every single person in that organization or different kinds of identity or ethnic groups in that organization, but you can be in solidarity with them? Right? So in other words, if my issue is not on the table, right, or I'm not necessarily in that particular group, and it's not to be exclusive, but to like really focus, then what is the way in which people can be in solidarity with that? So if I'm a transgendered person, but this is about people killing Black folks, how do I be in solidarity with that, even if I'm not necessarily a part of the internal collective, the collective or the coalition, right? And so that for me is one of the things that I ponder, and I have a lot of conversations with people about. The same with gender, right? How do we think about gender and its multiplicity? So let's talk about women identified and have an organization that focuses on that. And how can men be in solidarity with that organization without necessarily being a part of the organization, even if that organization itself is speaking from a space of coalition and collectivity? So, they're kind of really hard questions, but they can be questions that actually create tension and contention and challenges of an organization or a group of people being exclusive without really going to the level of thinking about, well, how can we all still be working together and be in solidarity, and you honor that space at the same time that you may create a multi-coalition space with different kinds of issues on the table. Solidarity doesn't always mean that everybody's issues are being focused on simultaneously, because sometimes when you do that, you water down what the message is or what the goal is, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you're intentionally excluding intersectionality, which comes into play in terms of understanding how people are multiply positioned. So I just kind of want to push and have us think about that as we think about what it means to build actually multi-facial, multi-demographic, multi-philosophy, multi-issue kinds of coalitions that are really broad and expansive. Because sometimes what happens is those other kinds of organizations are undermined as being exclusive or reverse this or reverse that, and it doesn't really allow us to get at the power dynamics or the needs of those particular kinds of groups. So that's my last word, except for saying thank you to everybody after everybody speaks, because I'll say thank you to everybody after everybody speaks. So Naomi and Mariah, Lizard, Courtney, Duck, do you all have closing words before we clap and all,
Thank you.
Self-care. Yeah, thank you.
Lizard, Courtney, Duck, you wanna take it over?
So I just wanted to say that when we're talking about the LGBTQ plus community, I also want to make sure that people think about safety and their emotions first before we go any further with our agendas on what we believe can be done. We need to first talk to them and see how they feel. So basically the conversation that I feel needs to be had possibly amongst Duck and some other people in this room is how do transgender people feel on campus? How do they feel going home from class? How do they feel going into their dorm? You know, just basically their emotions and what they want to do about it. Because that also helps push what needs to be done. Is basically them advocating, hey, I feel that this is wrong, so I want this to be changed, because they are the particular group that you are actually pushing for. So that's all. Closing. Also, thank you for having me. Courtney.
Thanks for putting this on. I really appreciate the Social Justice Institute for doing this. I appreciate everyone for coming and listening to us talk and regarding us as like worthy of listening to. That's super cool. I just really want to encourage people to, you know, stay active and stay confident in whatever you're doing, whatever kind of social change you're trying to create, because whatever it is, it's valid. And I know that a lot of times I get down on myself and I question myself, but at the end of the day, we're all doing things that are good for society, and like the power structure that exists has a really good way of making you feel like what you're doing is really invaluable and off target, but it's not. And I just want to encourage people to think about how you can not only change things through your government, like city government or state government, but also how you can change things through shifting the culture and just talking to your neighbors about everyday things and talking to your family about everyday things that you're involved with, so that you can not only you know, sort of tear down that white supremacist capitalist power structure and that patriarchal power structure, but also to build up a new structure of just you know, lovingness and care and kindness.
Lastly, I'd like to throw in just something that I keep telling myself, and I'll tell to other people as I keep continuing to do this. If you want some sort of solidarity to be formed, if you want to really see that, try not to have an in and out group, in groups, out groups. They really just isolate people. They're not very inclusive. I would say try to make the issues present a community issue. Bring everyone into it. See what they have to say, because that's how social change actually happens. And thank you very much.
Thank you.